Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome to the North West and West Cambridge Community Forum. I'm Philippa Kelly, the Strategic Sites Delivery Manager for the Greater Cambridge Shared Planning Service. In the recent past, the forum has been delivered by Cambridge City Council, with a number of development proposals now at the pre-application and planning stage, which are within the administrative area of South Cambridgeshire District Council, including Darwin Green 2 and 3 and Phase 2 of Eddington. The forum has moved to being jointly administered by the two authorities. This brings it in line with other city edge forums, for example, at North East Cambridge and East Cambridge. South Cambridgeshire District and Cambridge City facilitate several community forums for new neighbourhoods arising from growth in Greater Cambridge. These bring residents, council officers, councillors, developers and other stakeholders together to raise issues and discuss how the developments are moving forward. Forums provide an opportunity for discussion and information sharing and are not part of the formal planning process. If there are any elected members present from either the District Council or the City Council, and you would like to make your presence known, please do write your name in the questions and answers function. This forum is being recorded and will be shared via the City Council's website for those that cannot attend. For participants who ask questions verbally, your voice will be recorded, but not your video. The agenda for this evening includes a number of planning updates in respect of key sites. We have speakers joining us from developer teams and the Shared Planning Service. In respect of Darwin Green 1, we have an update from Charlotte Burton from the Shared Planning Service and Chris Fry from Barrett David Wilson Homes, whilst Chenge Taravinga from the Shared Planning Service will be providing an update in respect of Darwin Green 2 and 3. Matthew Johnson from the University of Cambridge will be providing an update regarding Eddington, and finally, Vicky Hayward, the City Council's Community Development Manager, will be providing a community development update. We also have representatives present from key stakeholder organisations in the area. They will be available to respond to any questions which may be raised during the course of this evening. Thank you to all our partners for supporting this forum, and thank you to everyone presenting. In terms of general housekeeping arrangements, questions relating to the presentations or the wider development in this area can be typed directly into the question and answer function at any time. I'll read these out and ask on your behalf either at the end of each presentation or, if more appropriate, as part of the general question and answer session later this evening. If we are unable to answer your question, we will provide a written response after the meeting, and that will be shared on the forum website. If you have difficulty in accessing the question and answer function, please do let me know by raising your hand. Please note, however, that the question and answer should be used for questions only rather than making statements. We do, however, welcome general feedback and comments about these forums, and we'll share details for doing so at the end of this evening. And as a final note, we do have quite a tight schedule for this evening, and I'm keen to ensure that we keep to the allotted times for each of the updates. This may mean that I need to move on to the next update before all questions have been answered. However, I will endeavour to ensure that outstanding questions are picked up either as part of the general Q&A session at the end of the forum, or we'll take those away and respond back via our website. As we now move on to the site updates, please can I remind speakers of the importance of sticking to their allotted time to allow the forum to run smoothly and to allow enough time for questions. So now turning to the first update in respect of Darwin Green 1, I'd like to introduce our first speaker. This is Charlotte Burton, Principal Planner with the Greater Cambridge Shared Planning Authority. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody, and thank you, Philippa. I'll just share my screen to give you a short update on planning matters in regard to Darwin Green 1. Just bear with me a moment. I'll just give that a moment to load, but hopefully you can see that on your screens now.
Yep.
So, yep, thank you very much. So I'm the lead case officer covering Darwin Green 1, working with a number of other colleagues across the parcel, across the development as well. For anybody that is needs some orientation with Darwin Green 1, it has outline planning permission It's the site located between Huntingdon Road and Histon Road, and approves, as well as a local centre, open spaces and community facilities. And it's quite helpful sometimes just to have a quick look at the most up-to-date ordnance survey map, showing the development that's happened to date and the remainder of the parcel still to be completed. So BDW1 parcel and the local centre under construction. And I'll come forward to the next parcels. So hot off the press, BDW2 was at Joint Development Control Committee today and was approved by members. So this is in the southern corner of the site. So the next stages of that will be discharge of planning conditions before commencement of construction, and Chris Fry, who's going to be doing it from Barratt's David Wilson Homes, who's going to be giving the second half of this presentation, no doubt will be able to give you an update on timescales there. We have two current reserved matters applications in. Those are for parcels BDW3 and BDW4. BDW3 is on the eastern side and 4 is on the western side. These are live applications, and at the moment we are looking at the submission of some amendments by the applicant to address comments that have been provided by consultees, and at the moment the target committee dates are the BDW4 to come forward first to a November committee, and for BDW3 to then follow in January. BDW5 and 6 towards the Histon Road end already has reserved matters consent and currently in the process of discharging planning conditions on that prior to commencement. This is just to give you a bit of familiarity with the BDW4 live application, BDW3 as well. But I won't go into detail if you're interested in those applications. They're all available on the planning portal to have a look and submit comments if you've got any questions. My details are there as well. In terms of other things that officers are currently working with the Barratt David Wilson Homes on at the moment, we are looking at the construction phasing plan and updating that to ensure that it follows on with the intended sequence that Barratts tend to follow going forwards. Also looking at supporting the developer with the implementation of the play spaces and getting details approved for those. Delivery of infrastructure, including working with the county on the delivery of the primary school, also with the county highways engineers in terms of meeting highways obligations, and delivery of community facilities, which I'm sure the communities facilities team will come on to, and working with the NHS for the delivery of the health centre. And we've also just received a full application for a temporary haul road to be extended. So there's a number of things that we're working on with Barratt's at the moment, and feel free to contact me if you've got any questions, but I'll now hand over to Chris Fry.
Thanks, Charlotte. Just share my screen. Can we see the presentation okay?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to be repeating a little bit of what Charlotte's referring to, but on the first Charlotte's slide, we're looking at different phases. So just to recall again, so we've got parcels 5, so we've got 6 and 5, which are being built by our Eastern Counties division. They are on site presence at the moment and just starting to construct those particular properties. Charlotte referred to, we've had BW2 got approved today for 323 dwellings. And in terms of our sequence, we'll be developing in parcel 2 shortly, then be commencing on 4 once we get permission in November's committee. And then following that, we're looking at BW3. So in terms of the sequence of events, it'll be Eastern Counties are developing, and they're going to be going from the top to the bottom there. We're going to be doing parcel 2 and 4. They're going to be running jointly at the same time. Then once 2's finished, we'll move on to parcel 3. So just a bit of an overview. So as I just referred to, we've got 2 Barratt Day, Wilson divisions. So as I just referred to, we've got 2 Barratt Day Wilson divisions on the site currently. BW2, we're going to be starting it imminently as soon as the conditions have been cleared for them, and China is basically August 2022. BW6, which is at the top there, is again August 22, which is by Eastern Counties Division. We're going to be looking at BW4, so start date November, so shortly after committee. We're not envisioning any pre-commencement conditions on BW4. And BW3 is early 2026 once we finished on BW2. And then the final, last phase of development is BW5. And that really relates to why we've asked for extension to the Hall Road. So just to go back a page, the Hall Road is the area in dark green. So we've asked for that to be retained until sorry, bear with me a second. That's going to be until 2030, December 2030. So just an overall progress. So we've got obviously BD1 as we know, which is the light green, that's been completed. We're at 212 occupations as of March 2022. The reserve matters application for 323 was approved today at July's committee. I have been moving away ahead of that committee to provide information to deal with the discharge of outline conditions that were not discharged at today's committee, and I've also submitted information in regards to what the reserve matters conditions, what they're envisaged to be, and they've all sort of been submitted through the planning portal. BW3, again, that's been submitted for 210 dwellings. We're trying to get an urban design workshops ahead, probably in the next month or so. We're targeting a January committee. BW4, we've got an urban design workshop tomorrow with Cam City and the urban designers to run through what we believe is a new and improved scheme, which results from 351 down to 342 dwellings, with the committee envisaged for November. Just an update in regards to BW5 and 6 from my colleagues at Eastern Counties. Works are likely to obviously start next couple of weeks, well, then they are in progress. They're in the early stage of preparing a standalone application. For those who aren't aware, there was a plot that was not subject to reserve matters approval. That's plot 202, which is towards the eastern boundary, is subject to a full application. And the Eastern Counties are meeting with the residents, and apparently that's been held. And a pre-application for that particular plot is to be submitted shortly. Just an overview in terms of our delivery. So in terms of, we're in financial year now 2023, so we're envisaging 195 dwellings to be completed in financial year 23, which runs from June to June. And then we can see the delivery as we go forward, with the final completions is financial year 29. So the attenuation pond that's been approved, that's in the top left hand corner, that's been the previous committee. We've just referred to extension of the Hall Road. We've got a new phasing plan, which Charlotte mentioned, that's been submitted. We've got a temporary footpath which links over this primary school site from BW1 to the Mugden Neep. We're waiting for the details of Mugden Neep to be signed off. We're still not projecting the connection to Windsor Road until early 2026, because obviously that's parcel 3. And as I said, all the information in regards to open space details have been submitted, and the trim trail details have been agreed. Few pictures from Kia. So this is the local centre progress. So the courtyard building is already complete, and we expect the community team to move in shortly. We have the noise management plan that required discharge. It's now been agreed. The retail units below will be completed by February 2023, and those retail units will be marketed shortly. The library building should be finished by March 2023. So in terms of the key delivery dates, we've got the library March 2023, the community rooms I've got May 22, but it's only been delayed in regards to the agreement of the lease, and I've went back last week in regards to BW's queries to the lease, gone back to the City Council for their comments. We've got 6 retail units, February to March 2023. Healthcare centre, well, this is still subject to NHS tenancy, and as Charlotte mentioned, talks are ongoing with the NHS. The supermarket site is not part of Barratt's control, and again, as far as we understand, that there's still discussions going on with the landowner and the supermarket uptake. Primary school itself has been delayed until September 2025, as the birth rates in the area have fallen, so therefore there's no need to bring the primary school on and open until September 2025. In terms of the play areas, as we discussed, so this is what we said at lap 1A has already been provided in BDW1. We've got lap 1 and lap 1 enhanced area and Mugs and Neeps, so we expect a decision very, very shortly on those, and we're expecting those to be delivered by probably August now instead of July 2022, because obviously the details are still to be agreed. In terms of communication going forward, you'll see all these updates in regards to Darwin Green, CambridgeSquare.com. There will shortly be a Darwin Green construction website, which will update, which all our construction teams will update to provide you an update in terms of the progress of the construction programs across the site. That's it from me. Any questions?
Great, thank you very much indeed to our presenters, Charlotte and to Chris. We had one question put to us in the chat, but I believe that you've already answered that, Chris. That was with regard to the connection to Windsor Road and the date for when the cycle and pedestrian route will be opened. And I think you've confirmed that as 2026, is that
It's
correct?
going to be early 2026. Essentially, it will coincide when we move away from that part of BW3 on our construction phase. I understand, obviously, there's an aspiration for people to come through Windsor Road. However, due to pretty much site safety and construction, we can't allow pedestrians through our construction site.
That's great, thank you. And that seems to be all the questions we have on this site for now. If we have any further questions, we can ask those at the end of the session at the general Q&A. So thank you to the both presenters. And I just wanted to provide an update regarding the councillors present and with us this evening. We have confirmed presence of Councillor Bill Handley, who is the District Councillor lead member for communities for the District Council. And we have also Councillor Simon Smith present, who represents the Castle Ward for the City Council, and Councillor Dave Bajan, who represents the Romsey Ward with the City Council. So thank you for all attending. So now moving on, we have an update in respect of, oh, hang on, we have a number of questions that are just coming in late, and given we've got a few more minutes to deal with questions, I'm going to fire away now. So there's a question regarding sort of general play areas across the development. I'm hoping, Chris, that's perhaps something that you can illustrate with reference to one of your plans, perhaps, to show with the provision of general open space and in specifically play areas for children.
Let me share my screen again. So let me just go a page up. Sorry, I'm going to go up. There we go. So essentially, this is the open space triggers. So the trigger open space provision is 200, and by now we should have had 0.93 hectares, and we are aware of our fall in regards to section 106 trigger on that. We have opened up BDW1 lap. We have started commencing works in regards to a lap which is between the local centre and BDW4. However, ongoing discussions in regards to BW4 and the design workshop of that would mean that we have to amend what we originally envisaged for that particular lap. We have a plot. We've submitted for all of the lap details, and we've been working with the officers and the open space team to resolve any issues we got in regards to the details of open spaces. Once they have been agreed, then we can get on and provide those particular spaces. In regards to getting access to those spaces, that's a temporary footpath, by the way. It's the idea is that once we've got the mugger and neat details to be agreed, which when they were discussing last week with Julia, who's the case officer, that essentially the mugger and neat will be the next two play areas to be constructed and put on, with that footpath link completed so you can gain access to it. So essentially, yes, we acknowledge we are behind in terms of section 106s. We do acknowledge that. We have submitted all the details for all of the play areas that are what we call the strategic play areas, waiting for them to be signed off, and the mugger and neat will be the next two to be put on.
Thank you, Chris. And for those of you, and I'm sure there's many of you that may not be familiar with the acronyms that have been referred to today, just for the avoidance of doubt. So a LAP is a local area of play. A LEAP is a locally equipped area of play. A mugger is a multi-use games area. And I believe a NEAT is a neighbourhood equipped area of play. Perhaps we can, if we're circulating those slides on our website later in due course, maybe we'll put a clarification of those acronyms alongside, so that'll clarify that position. Thank you, Chris. A couple more questions that we'll just go for just a couple. now. So there's a question regarding child yield information in respect of the delay in primary school provision and whether that data is accessible to the public. So this will be county council forecasting information in respect of education, won't it? Charlotte, you're nodding your head here. Do you want to come in and provide any further insight into that?
I think the update that Chris gave in terms of the yield was based on meetings that both he and I have attended with the county council. It is based on their most up-to-date information. I suppose we can contact the county to see the status of that information, whether it's publicly available, and report back.
Great, thank you, Charlotte. I'm going to take one more question to answer because it's related to the open space, and that's confirmation of when the Central Park is scheduled to be open. Chris, are you able to confirm that?
Actually, yeah, I mean, in terms of the Central Open Park, that's the main triggers revolved around the 400th occupation, which are predicted to be December 2023. We have last week got the details of the trim trail, which is POS 3E, and as it wraps around and joins POS on this key 3C and 3A. So we have got the details of that to be agreed. But the main trigger would revolve around the 400th occupation, which we're looking to be put on by December 23.
Great. Thank you, Chris. And I was getting ahead of myself. I was thinking that we were going to be behind schedule, but we're actually more than on time. So I think we're going to use this time just to see if we can address the other questions that have come into the Q&A this evening. There's a question regarding whether there's any plans for a prayer room to be provided as part of the community space. Is that something that, Chris, you could take?
I would have thought, well, I'm probably not the best person to answer on that, to be truly honest with you. Obviously, there's the Section 106 community facilities and the and what is required to be put in terms of a vision. But I thought maybe Vicky would probably be the best person to ask on that, and that probably comes up later on in the discussion. Yeah,
you're right. We can pick that later up in the discussion. There's a statement regarding earthquakes in Beagle Road due to development, and I'm assuming this is in relation to construction activities recently, where we have received from the City Council have been made aware of concerns from local residents regarding noise and disturbance and so forth. We have looked into that with our environmental health team, and there has been some monitoring taken place. Chris, would you like to provide further update regarding that position?
So noise and vibration monitoring took place, must be at least 2 weeks ago now. And we placed monitors in positions agreed with your environmental health officer. Following the results of that, we then reported back to your environmental health officer, who doesn't have the concern that it is an earthquake. Sorry, but he's satisfied in terms of what activity that has been taking place is not deemed to be such a nuisance as to take any further formal enforcement action.
Thank you, Chris. There's a question regarding whether we could confirm when the enforcement against parking in the cycle lanes on Lawrence Weaver Road will commence. Guessing this is a highways matter, county issue, but I don't know whether, Charlotte, you have an ear to the ground regarding an update in respect of that.
I'm hoping Chris might be able to give you an update.
Okay, so
positive one.
Yes. So essentially, we met a company called One Parking Solutions last week, who were shortly putting up parking enforcement signs on the lamppost on Lawrence Weaver Road. So if they haven't gone up today, I expect them to be put up very imminently to basically give warning that there will be parking enforcement vehicles going around by One Parking Solutions, and will be issuing notices to those who park within the cycle lanes. Having discussed that again with our South Mids division, who basically cover the first part of Lawrence Weaver Road, they've also been in agreement that we can put those particular signs up. So shortly be expecting enforcement signs to go up.
Great, thank you for that update, Chris. And there's also another question regarding the play areas. And are you able to advise what the trigger points for the play areas would be? Now that will be associated with the Section 106 legal agreement that cross-references to the number of occupations of the dwellings. So I'm guessing that's quite a specific question that you might not have all the answers to. Maybe we need to come back with those details. But Chris, do you have a rough update that you can provide us with?
In terms of finding something that's probably user friendly, and I'm going to look to Charlotte here with this one. We've submitted a discharge condition for the phasing plan, and the phasing plan refers to those particular triggers. And when we're anticipating what open spaces across the site can live in and when in line with Section 106. So that's probably the easiest document to find. That is available on the council's website via the public access system. I don't know the discharge number off the top of my head, sadly, but I'm sure we'll be able to circulate that for you.
Thank you. And then I think we have just a final comment that's connected to the Windsor Road walking and cycling route, and a question regarding the timing of that. The statement relates to the proposer of the question that has said, I was under the impression that the infrastructure should be done before the building construction starts. Not entirely sure about whether I understand the question.
I think I can provide an answer, but in terms of that Windsor Road connection, there was an expectation that the link would come in at an early stage, and that was based on the approved phasing plan. There's no trigger within the Section 106 requiring it to come in, and that's why, as Chris explained, part of the revised phasing plan will look at the suitability of or the possibility of providing that link, and he's explained that due to the construction constraints, it seems like it's no longer going to be possible to provide it at that early stage. So from a council perspective, we need to review the information that's been submitted, and we will be having a look at the suitability of the timing of that link.
Brilliant, thank you, Charlotte. And I think we're going to do the one final question now. When will the access open to Histon Road from the top of Central Park?
Can I come back to you on that, because that's been covered under our Eastern Counties division? If that's okay, if you see that question, I'll find that out from Eastern County.
That's fine. We can provide that as a written update, and we'll post that on the website within the next 2 weeks after this meeting, if not well before. Okay, it seems now that we have no more open questions in respect of Darwin Green Phase 1. So many thanks indeed to Charlotte and Chris for their helpful presentations and for fielding so well the questions this evening. Thank you. We're now going to move on to hear from Matthew Johnson, who's the Development Manager at the University of Cambridge, who's going to provide an update with regard to Eddington. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you, Philippa. I'll just share my screen. Okay, please let me know if you're not able to see that. So I'm going to give a brief update on activity at Eddington. You can see here a CGI of our Phase 1. So to date, Phase 1 of the North West Cambridge development, now known as Eddington, has delivered 686 affordable homes for university key workers. We have 623 market homes that are consented on the site so far. Significant activity that's happened has been around plots M1 and M2 there, being delivered by Hill, as well as activity on S3 down here. We have had, been an application made by Present Maid, who submitted an application for 373 units, and they will be developing at M1 and M2 here, subject to gaining planning consent. We've also delivered 325 units of graduate housing within our Phase 1 that's occupied by Girton College. In terms of community facilities, we have a 3-form entry primary school, the community centre that's open, and the nursery facility as well. The health facility is complete, but we are still engaged in discussions with the NHS to determine who and when they're going to be occupying that space. We have our sports facilities, including the cricket pitch. Our green open spaces have been delivered here as well, and down here. And we also have a number of play areas that have been delivered on the site. That's all complemented by our commercial space that's been delivered, including the large Sainsbury's supermarket, the Dolcetto patisserie, and the hotel opened this year by Hyatt. And we have up to 7 further local shops as well coming forward. So a bit more detail here on the plots that are currently underway or being completed. So as I noted, M1 and M2 is where the majority of completions have occurred in the market housing at the moment. And that's the Knights Park branded development by Hill. M3 down here opposite Sainsbury's has been commenced by Hill, but is on pause, subject to their phasing, but we expect that to come back online in the near future. S3 is under construction at the moment, and if anybody's seen it recently, you'll see that some of the scaffolding is starting to come down, so there's been good progress there. Lot 4 here has recently received planning consent on the 7th of June for Hill again to bring forward some market housing. And as I said, we've got a live planning application on plots S1 and S2 here in Amber, and that's been put forward by Crescent Maid, who will be building a mix of apartments and dwellings to operate as a build-to-rent product. The remaining lot that's currently envisaged for phase 1 to come forward is plot M4, M5 over here, and discussions are ongoing with that, and we expect planning consultations to commence reasonably soon. Where our developer partner Durkin will be able to share more information on what they're hoping to build there. A few photos of what's happened over the summer. So we've got an example there of our ecology public tours that have happened as part of the Cambridge Nature Festival. The Hyatt Hotel there with the Enchanted Cinema in their internal courtyard. And note there that's coming back later this year as well. We had the Residents Association Platinum Jubilee Picnic. And then also to note that later on in the year, there's going to be some community events focused on sustainability. They're planned for September. Just some brief community updates to share as well. So the bus gate is now in operation on Eddington Avenue. So we just like to make sure people are aware that they don't try to use that. There's further community events coming forward later in the summer, as I said. There's some discussions ongoing around potential autonomous vehicle trials that would take place between Eddington and West Cambridge, and that's been led by the County Council. We have our Green Blue U pop-up that's coming to the Market Square every Wednesday, and they do refillable toiletries and like, and that's going to continue through the summer as well. We've also advanced recently discussions with a number of potential retail tenants to start filling up the 7 remaining units. So we hope to be able to share further information on those in the near future. That's the end of my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you very much indeed, Matthew. We have one question so far in the chat that relates to the cricket pitch. Are you aware that the cricket pitch is unusable as a proper cricket pitch because it doesn't comply with the required standards for surfacing, etc.? Are there any plans to address this?
We are aware of that, and we've been liaising with both the university sports team and some of the national authorities around cricket to try and see what can be resolved around getting the cricket pitch activated. In the meantime, it is being used by a number of sports clubs for various activities, including some cricket and some other things that have happened, including over the weekend, I think. I don't have the details on the actual technical requirements to be resolved, but we do have a work stream to try and see how we can make the best use of the asset as it's been delivered.
Great, many thanks for responding to that question. I'm just going to wait a while to see if any more questions come in. Nothing so far. It may well be if we do receive any more about this particular part of the site, we can ask them if you're happy to stay on the call till later on at the general question and answer session.
Of course, yeah, I'll still be on the call.
Lovely, that's great. I think given that we don't have any more questions regarding Eddington, we will move on now. We can move on to our next presenter. So thank you very much, Matthew, for a useful, informative session. We're going to move now on to Darwin Green 2 and 3 with a presentation by Chenge Taravinga from the Greater Cambridge Shared Planning Service. Thank you, Chenge.
Thanks, Philippa. I'm just going to share my screen, bear with me. Okay, so the Darwin Green planning, Darwin Green 2 and 3 planning application.
So Shenge, just to interrupt, we can't yet see your screen, so you might want to just stop sharing and try again.
Okay, bear with me.
No problem. Yeah, it looks like it's coming through now. I'll let you know when we can see it. That's brilliant.
Okay.
Okay, you just need to, I think, move to full screen and then we're good to go.
Thank you.
Brilliant.
Right, the Darwin Green planning application for phase 2 and 3 has now been submitted. It was submitted at the end of May and has gone through the initial consultation period. So just in terms of what the application is, it's a hybrid planning application comprising of an outline element that's with all matters reserved except for means of access for up to 1,000 residential dwellings, a secondary school, primary school, community facilities, retail uses, open space provision and landscape. The full element relates to the balancing pond, which was mentioned earlier. At the time of the submission of the current application, the balancing pond had not yet gone through to committee, and so the applicants decided to just ensure that it would gain approval if it came through again as part of the 2 and 3 scheme, just as a means to make sure that they got that through. In terms of what the scheme is proposing, it's basically, as I've mentioned, up to 1,000 dwellings, community building of up to 400 square meters, retail uses, as well as a primary school with 2 forms of entry. There's a country park proposed, which is approximately 46 hectares. And as I've mentioned, the drainage pond, which was to support Darwin Green 1, is also part of this application. Just in terms of context, the site is immediately north of the Darwin Green 1 site. And so you'll see with the arrows there that you've got Girton to sort of the northwest, and then you've got Histon and Impington to the north, with Orchard Park, Castle and Arbury to the east. In terms of where the different facilities will be provided on site, this is just an indicative master plan that sort of sets out where the facilities coming forward would be located. So there is the 3 access points that are proposed that are coming off the Histon Road access that also serves Darwin Green 1. So you've got 3 access points proposed. And within the site itself, as mentioned, there is the school that was secured, the secondary school that was secured under the Section 106 agreement for Darwin Green 1, that is to be cited within where my cursor is pointed, and then the primary school just immediately north of that. Some playing fields are also proposed to the west, and the country park is, as you can see, within this area to the north and stretching from the east to the west as well. There are many different local areas of play to be provided within the site. And the balancing pond that I mentioned earlier, which has now got planning permission, is located in the vicinity where my cursor is pointing. The details of the planning application are all available on public access, so you can actually see these drawings in much more detail. but hopefully this indicative master plan gives just a bit of an insight in terms of what the scheme entails. So as mentioned, we have now concluded the consultation period for the planning application, and the applicants are in the process of reviewing comments that have come through from statutory consultees as well as from residents. The application will be determined by the Joint Development Control Committee, and it's likely to be reported to the JDCC in autumn. I'd say our aim at this point is to get it to the October committee, but that's really dependent on how quickly any amendments to the scheme come through and are resolved. Should the application be found acceptable by the JDCC and the resolution for approval carried through, then the application will be subject to a Section 106 agreement. I do apologize for the dog barking. If the application is to be approved, then a design code process would also follow. And that concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Many thanks, Chenge, for your presentation. We have one question so far, and that relates to public transport provision for Darwin Green. I don't know whether this is one specifically that you're able to answer, Chenge, or whether we should leave that for a sort of a wider discussion with Chris Fry at the end. Chenge, are you looking at the moment to secure public transport improvements as part of the Section 106 agreement in relation to the application you're dealing with?
Yes, so we haven't yet begun the heads of terms discussions with the applicants. It's our aim to do so concurrently with the application as it is being considered. We are also going to be having discussions with the County Highway Authority and the transport team to talk about to review the information that has been submitted as part of the transport statement, and then from there work out what would be required. So that is certainly something that will be considered in the coming months.
Great, thank you, Chenge. And there's a question now regarding education provision, and surprised that another primary school is planned for DG1 and DG23. That there's concern raised that will have an effect on local primaries that are already within this area. And the question regarding educational needs and forecasting information that was raised again has also been raised as this question. I understand that you'll be liaising with the county education team with regard forecasting and needs for this part of the site, Chenge?
Yes, so we've already started having discussions with the county education team, and their advice is that they are considering the timing of the provision of that school carefully. They haven't given us any specific trigger in which they think that school would need to then be provided, but it is something that they are considering quite carefully with us. So that will probably again be part of that Section 106 wording in terms of the trigger point.
Thanks, Chenge. I've noticed that Matthew Johnson's got his hand up. Matthew, did you want to come in with regard to education provision?
If I may, Philippa, yeah, I just wanted to, as it mentions the Eddington Primary School at the University of Cambridge Primary School, I just wanted to note that at Eddington, the university obviously provided a 3-form entry primary school very early on in the development and ahead of the actual requirement for our development. But because we're only partway through, the ultimate child yield of the Eddington development is not yet there. So just a note to that question that we need to think about these things in the fullness of time, as well as what the immediate impact is now. We expect many more of the children at the primary school, at the University of Cambridge Primary School, to be from Eddington in the fullness of time.
Thank you, Matthew. And Chenge, there's another question regarding school provision. Do we have a current opening date for the new secondary school?
I'm not aware of a specific date. I do believe, and maybe Charlotte might be able to assist you, but I do believe there's a trigger of, I think, 450 units to be delivered on Darwin Green phase 1, and then that land will then be handed over to county. But I don't know what sort of time frame we're looking at for the actual delivery of the school.
Thanks, Chenge. We can come back with a written update regarding those triggers, and perhaps it may also be useful to do an education update at the next forum, perhaps with a representative from the county education team. Charlotte, did you have anything else you wanted to add to that?
I do have some information on the timing of the secondary school. The trigger is for the 450th occupation, which I have to remind myself exactly if that's handover of the facility or agreement of the specification, but that would be reached in 2024. And the latest information I had from the county was that opening of the secondary school would be in 2026.
Great, and just to confirm, which will also answer another question, that has been confirmed and is secured through the Section 106 legal agreement in respect of Darwin Green 1. Thank you. So another question for Chenge: are those playing fields to be accessible for the public? They seem very much attached to the schools.
I think there will be wording that we've used before in our other 106, Section 106s, that will allow flexibility for the community to use those playing fields. It's something that we've discussed with the county education authority, and they've indicated a willingness to utilize that wording that will allow that level of flexibility.
Great, thank you. And there's a wider sort of strategic question being asked about access to the wider countryside over the A14 towards Girton and Histon. Is there something sort of in terms of strategic connectivity you can provide an update with regard?
I think it's fair to say that the applicant has put forward certainly potential connections from the site across the bridge, but I think the challenge that they seem to be having is the fact that it crosses over third-party land, and the current status of that particular discussion is that the third-party landowner is not yet willing to allow for that access to be made available. I believe that Jess Tuttle from the county is pursuing, well, is certainly discussing this matter with the applicants, and certainly his latest comments on the application reflect that. But at this point, it's certainly a key issue that has been raised, but that is the challenge.
Okay, thank you very much, Chenge. Looks like there are no more open questions with regard to your update, so thank you very much indeed. We can move on now. We're well ahead of time this evening. We can move on now to our final update, which is from Vicky Hayward, who's our Community Development Manager at Cambridge City Council, in relation to community update. Thank you.
There we go. I'm just coming off mute and getting my screen ready to share. Bear with, apologies. Share. Okay, can you see that? Oh no, I haven't clicked the share button. Technical difficulties for me today. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can see that now.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm just I'll take the questions that came up through the questions first, and then I'll go on to the slides, because I know these questions didn't come up in the slide prep. So I'll just go through some of those. So there was a question about prayer space. So where we're at the moment with the community facility is, as Chris mentioned, we're just working through the lease details in order to get that transfer complete between Barrett's and the City Council. It's not been specifically designed as a prayer space, but we're more than happy to talk to residents about how they want to use the space going forward. So at the end of this slide, you'll see some email and contact details. More than happy to have a conversation offline about how you think residents might want to use the space as and when that's transferred to us and ready for community use. You may have seen a question from Councillor Simon Smith in the chat about Storiesfield Trust. So just quickly, some wider context. Currently, Cambridge City Council manage Storiesfield Community Centre on behalf of Storiesfield Trust. We won't be running the centre as of the end of the financial year, March 2023. Storiesfield Trust are currently looking to procure a new contract manager. So that work is going on behind the scenes with Storiesfield Trust and Cambridge City Council. It won't impact the delivery of the centre being open, so that residents don't need to worry about that. In fact, the centre is doing really well coming out of the pandemic, and it's particularly busy with lots of parties and community events. And certainly we know we do get a lot of residents from Darwin Green also using the space up there at Eddington, so that's great. I think those are the questions that I saw come up, which will not be covered in my slides, so I'll just go on to my slides now. So over the last few months, we've been gathering feedback from residents and doing door knocking, which has been a really worthwhile experience. We weren't able to do very much welcoming and door knocking through the pandemic, so it's been really great to get back out and meet people on their doorsteps and in spaces across Darwin Green. Really positive feedback from residents, generally very happy with lots of things going on. A few issues came up which we've talked about already today, particularly the one thing that gripes residents the most is the misuse of the cycle lane, and that has caused quite a lot of concern. So I'm really pleased that we're able to, Chris is able to report that some enforcement will be taking place, and we can be supporting Barrett's to make sure that residents are aware that that's coming forward. We've been exploring volunteer opportunities with a number of residents on site, and that's good and going well. And we're working to plan the programme for the community rooms. So if you live on site and you've been round, you might have seen that the centre looks pretty complete from the outside, and you can see from the inside images here, it's almost ready to go. Some of you may have seen some of these images before, but we've been in and been popping in the furniture and doing things like testing the lifts and all things like that to get ready for handover. As we mentioned earlier, Chris mentioned, we're working together on that handover process and the lease back and forward, so that's progressing nicely. We're planning some test events coming up very soon to make sure that we're ready to open the centre with test evacuations and all kinds of things that need to be done prior to opening. And the community are really pleased and got some really great ideas of how they want to use the space for new events, community get-togethers, sewing club, Lego club, some yoga classes, all kinds of interesting uses coming forward as suggestions and things going on in the background to make sure that they're ready to go. I mentioned the doorstep surveys. It's something we've been working on, and we've got quite a lot of work taking place over the summer. So we're working on a number of holiday lunches, which will be taking place at Storiesfield. Holiday lunches is a programme of activity and free lunch events, particularly good for families on low incomes across the city over the summer holidays, but also just an opportunity, particularly in the summer holidays. It can be a difficult time for families. There's an opportunity to get together and have a free activity and get out of the house. And at Storiesfield, certainly attend somewhere that's nice and cool and air conditioned, which would have been lovely over the last few days. The local church that we work with, New Life Church, is running a summer family trip. I believe it's this weekend coming, and that is for residents across Eddington and Darwin Green, so that's really good to see. And we've got some family events that are booked to take place on site at Darwin Green on the 1st and the 15th of August. We can't guarantee that we'll be in the community centre by that time, so we will be doing it on that field outside, which we've used before, which if you live on site, you'll know is the temporary fenced off space, which is where the supermarket car park will be eventually. And we'll use that site there to get together with residents and do some family events. And here's our contact details. So if you do have any suggestions or want to contact us about how to use the community facility or ideas to get your neighbours together and improvements we could do alongside you in the community, do get in touch. I'm not Lisa, I'm Vicky, but Lisa is the main contact. She just wasn't able to be with us tonight. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Vicky. There's a question regarding prayer room plans, and is there any temporary space that could be used as a multi-faith room for the wider community?
I'm not currently aware of any temporary space that's available at Barrett's, but it might be something we could discuss with Chris and the team.
Thank you. No further questions at the moment. It looks like we don't have anything further to ask you, Vicky, but obviously if any more questions do pop in, we can address those after.
Absolutely, yeah, I'm staying around, so I'm happy to take further questions.
Okay. Someone has made a statement that there is multi-faith space at West Cambridge. I think perhaps this is something that would be good to explore separately outside of the forum, and then perhaps a subsequent update at another forum later on in the year, perhaps.
So as that's mentioned, I'll take that query away and find out a little bit more about how residents access that space, because I'm not sure it's easy to find out the detail. So I'll come back and we'll provide a written answer and signposting for that.
That would be great if you could. Thank you. It's just a general statement that residents living along the border are hindered in terms of their ability to reach the community centre earliest in 2026. That in terms of timing and delivery concerns.
Oh, we think that means the people from the Histon Road side of the site, which I think Charlotte addressed earlier around the phasing plans of those access routes or temporary access routes.
So it looks like we've no further live questions. So I'm going to draw the forum to a close now. We're ahead of ourselves, so we have some time to give back to you all now this evening. I want to extend my very grateful thanks to all presenters, panelists, officers and attendees for joining us this evening. And a special thanks from me to the communities teams from both authorities who have worked really hard behind the scenes to organise and deliver this forum. So we'll aim to have the recording and the questions and answer responses available on the forum webpage within 2 weeks. I'd like to invite all attendees this evening to complete a Zoom survey, which will pop up in your browser when this meeting ends. The survey will take less than 2 minutes to complete, and we're particularly keen for feedback regarding the format of the next forum on the 9th of November and potential topics for discussion. And as I mentioned earlier this evening, any additional feedback, questions or concerns can be sent directly to south.west@southcams.gov.uk. And so again, thank you all. And I look forward to seeing you at the next forum later on in the year. Many thanks. Good evening.